The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Are you missing yet another IANDS conference because getting there is a real problem? Well, let's talk about the joys of live streaming, brought to you by IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting, and today's program on NDE Radio is to give you the background on the main speakers we'll be streaming from the Orlando conference later this week. For full details on how you can be there, check out the IANDS website at IANDS.org. Now, bear in mind that not all of the speakers get live streamed because only the major ballroom will be set up for the technology. The good news is the featured speakers will be speaking from that ballroom. So what I want to do today is give you a quick preview of these speakers, their background, and what they plan to cover. And we have only a half hour to do this, so hang on for the ride. But first, an overview of the theme and setup of this conference. The conference title is Explore the Extraordinary, Paths to Healing and Wholeness. Near-death experiences often result in a greater sense of well-being and purpose in life, but the journey of integrating the experience is often fraught with challenges as well. NDEers themselves, the professionals who care for them and their families, and NDE educators and researchers all have a role in helping NDEers stay on the path to healing and wholeness, and in helping humanity to use knowledge of NDEs to pursue this path. Now, the conference is organized in two sessions. Thursday all day is a healthcare, education, research, science session with presentations by healthcare professionals, NDE educators, and NDE researchers on exploring and applying our understanding of NDEs and related phenomena. And then Friday through Sunday noon is a general session with presentations by NDEers, clergy, social workers, researchers, and others on the inspiration, spiritual insights, and wisdom of NDEs, near-death-like experiences, and related phenomena. So now I'm going to tell you who these main speakers will be. Laura Belg. Dr. Belg has worked with patients in the intensive care unit who have had near-death and out-of-body experiences during sudden cardiac death and severe trauma. And her talk is titled Near-Death Experiences in the ICU. Many of those accounts have been documented in her book, Near-Death in the ICU, Stories from Patients Near Death and Why We Should Listen to Them. These experiences are profoundly meaningful, and yet when they are reported, they are frequently met with skepticism and dismissal by medical caregivers and family members. Lauren maintains that we don't have to fully understand these events to honor the transformative role they often play in the lives of those who experience them. A thought leader in the area of working with patients who've had near-death experiences, Lauren has been a keynote speaker at many venues throughout the U.S. Her presentations are popular for their strong storytelling and thought-provoking message on the importance of honoring personal experience as a part of healing. So that's Dr. Lauren. Now we've got Gregory Shushan, who will be speaking next on near-death experience and the origins of afterlife beliefs. Whatever their source, NDEs are unquestionably part of the human experience. While they share similar themes wherever they occur, no two descriptions are exactly alike. As with any experience, NDEs are filtered through our layers of culture, language, and individuality. The interpretation of the phenomenon as indicative of survival after bodily death, however, appears to be universal. Accounts from around the world and throughout history show that NDEs regularly impact beliefs about the afterlife despite cross-cultural differences. This presentation addresses their role in the formation of afterlife beliefs, the relationship between NDEs and cultural expectations, and the varying modes of interpretation and assimilation of these experiences in different societies. The argument that NDEs are a driving force behind religious beliefs aligns well with the conference's focus on the transformative aspects of NDEs and how they are integrated into people's lives. I'm looking forward to this talk quite a lot. As you who may follow my show from on a regular basis know, my interest in the relationship of NDEs to the stories narrated in the Bible, to how religions get put together and what they're based upon. These are topics for NDE radio all the time, so I'm looking forward to Gregory's talk quite a bit. In fact, if I get a chance, I will try to interview him for this show while I'm down there in Orlando. Robert and Suzanne Mays are the next speakers on the live streaming, and their topic is Unraveling the Mystery of Memory, EEG Evidence from NDEers. They write about this talk. Near-death experiencers report that the memory of their NDE is more vivid and lucid than ordinary memories. 2 recent analyses of NDE memories showed that they have significantly more characteristics like visual details, memory clarity, self-referential information, and emotional content than both memories of real events and imagined events. There's a real difference there. In addition, the EEG patterns in NDEers differ significantly in several characteristics when the NDEers recall their NDE than non-NDEers when they recall real or imagined events. This is a measurable phenomenon. The hypothesis that the non-material mind separates from the physical body during an NDE is consistent with these findings. According to the hypothesis, when the mind is separated from the body, sensations are experienced directly rather than through the physical senses, and the memories are recorded directly in the mind rather than through the hippocampus. The recall of NDE memories would then use different pathways and electrical patterns than ordinary recall of episodic memories. Should be a good talk. The next is Charlotte Marshall, and that's her topic is characteristics of near-death experience, memories, and personal changes following NDEs. About her talk, she writes, for many NDEers, an NDE permanently and dramatically alters personal attitudes, beliefs, and values. We studied their self-reported answers regarding impact on life and changes of opinion following the NDE. Moreover, this retrospective investigation compared the answers of experiencers who lived NDEs after a non-life-threatening event, what we call an NDE-like experience, or after a pathological coma, so-called real NDE, and so forth and so on. So she's going to compare those characteristics one to the other in her talk. Let me move on. I hate to rush through these because they are all worth talking about. And if I get organized enough, we could have many of these people on the radio show in the following months. All right. Tibor Putnoki. Hungarian. If I stumble over his name, I apologize. Tibor Putnoki is speaking on his own personal NDE. He's titled it 9 Minutes, My Path to the Light. He went through a profound near-death experience in 1994. His NDE lasted for 9 minutes. This experience not only changed his earlier life entirely, but also gave an inspiration to the rest of his life. Quote, people need to be told. They need to know, not to live and act as they do and as I did, he writes. In the presentation, Tibor would talk about his own NDE story, including his path to healing, recovery, and about a totally new life with a much wider scope and aims compared to his previous one. Now, he only speaks in Hungarian, but we will have an English translator, Christoph Toth, there to translate what Tibor has to say. Going to move on now to Nancy Baumgarten. Her talk, How Do You Explain Your Spiritually Transformative Experiences? She writes, or asks the question, how do you explain your spiritually transformative experiences? Concerned you are crazy? No, you are not. And she says, here is the science to give you fortitude and stories from the psychospiritual mystical front. Introduction to your own knowing. For parents, educators, kids, and all, come to find out what non-local consciousness is all about. She writes, your living human anatomy, your biofield, rides on the currents of the quantum field around us. Here lies your innate supernormal sensory perception that blends the invisible light into your visible physical body. Discover your 33 powers of awareness, multiple intelligences waiting for you to unfold into your brilliant life. Using illustrations from her own life experience and sharing with her audience the intuitive abilities of her daughter, which began her search for a community of learning and fun for supersensing children and their families, she writes, we will be energized by this metaphysical mentor. Children of all ages will be convinced of the normalcy of profound awareness and the necessity to honor that cosmic connection within ourselves and those entrusted to our care. Nancy Baumgarten. Should be very interesting. Now, we're still on Thursday, but now we go to Friday. I think Nancy must be speaking. Yes, she's speaking in the evening, 7:30 to 9. So we'll switch over to our Friday speakers now. And you remember what I described from the beginning as a different orientation, a different direction than the first day. Anita Moorjani is speaking Friday morning, and her talk, Embracing the Gift of Life. Anita is a New York Times best-selling author, and her program is always riveting. It really is. It's designed to radically alter your current beliefs about yourself, your purpose on earth, your health, your relationships, and your life. In February of 2006, Anita was on her deathbed, having suffered from cancer for several years. Moorjani was in a coma with malignant tumors throughout her body. Doctors told her husband and mother she had only hours to live. After coming out of a 30-hour coma, Moorjani emerged from an out-of-body experience where she says she experienced the afterlife and gained a new understanding of our physical life. Medical records show that Anita was miraculously found cancer-free within 3 weeks of her NDE. The lessons from her experience in the other realm were powerful. Love yourself unconditionally, live fearlessly, release your fears, and be yourself. Surviving cancer and an NDE have shaped Anita's life and work. She has since shared her story with audiences all around the world as a highly sought-after inspirational speaker. Anita will inspire you. I know she will because I've been to her talks before. She will inspire you to transform your life by living more authentically, discovering your greatest passions, transcending your deepest fears, and living from a place of pure joy. You will feel energized as Anita explains such mind-bending concepts as timelessness, non-duality, and simultaneous realities in such simplified terms that everyone will understand. And listeners usually experience many aha moments as she explains how by merely understanding and becoming aware of these concepts and adopting an inside-out view of the world, you can radically change, radically alter your reality instantly. Jeff Olson. Now, Jeff is an amazing person with an amazing story to tell, and he has been on NDE Radio. You can go back and listen to his story. in our archives, but I would strongly suggest that you do this as a live streaming event as well. His talk is Exploring Spiritual Gifts in the Aftermath of an NDE. Jeff Olson transforms his own near-death experience into keys to explore the extraordinary in day-to-day life. After a devastating auto accident crippled Olson and took half of his family, Olson draws from the answers provided in his own NDE to explore the gifts and profound miracles in everyday life. Olson expounds on what we do here now to literally bring heaven and greater spirituality to this planet. Olson takes his NDE to the next level by sharing what can be done in day-to-day life to create miracles and more joy in the lives of everyone, not just those who have had a near-death experience. Moving on to Christopher Copps. And of course, we're still in the Friday session. Christopher writes, please don't turn NDEs into a new religion. And that's the topic of his talk. There are many different NDEs. Not one is equal to another. Yet there are a limited number of wonderful common themes in NDEs that can be of great help to heal NDEers and non-NDEers. These common themes, when adopted by a sufficient number of people, and he put in paren a critical mass, and that's the truth. If we could get our 774 NDEers per day in this country to openly talk about their experience, what a difference it would make. These common themes, when adopted by a sufficient number of people, can even heal the world. However, some people who study NDEs, including those who have had an NDE themselves, tend to create their own theory of how the visible and invisible world is constructed. And in doing so, they sometimes go much farther than the limited number of common NDE themes justify. This carries the danger of creating a new sort of religion, which will significantly reduce the value that NDEs could have for everyone in the world. Better, I think, that the NDE stories should be incorporated into the religions that already exist to strengthen their own truth. Bill and Christopher Guggenheim. Bill has also been on this show. Amazing stories to tell. Bill's talk is titled The After-Death Communication Course, which is his program has been for many, many years, the ADC course. And Bill writes, this will be a 60-minute oral presentation of our new work, the After-Death Communication Course. This will include a definition of after-death communication experiences and a brief overview of our book, Hello from Heaven, which founded the field of ADC research in 1995. In addition, we will describe our new work, the ADC course, which prepares people and trains them how to have ADC experiences with their loved ones who have died. We'll be happy to answer all questions from the audience, of course. You won't, you'll hear, if all the technology is working correctly in the live streaming, you will hear the questions asked because everyone is supposed to come up to a mic. And then, of course, you'll hear the answer regardless. That's Bill Guggenheim and Christopher. We move to Rebecca Vaya. Let's see. We're already into Friday afternoon here. The talk is titled Working with NDEers and Other Potentially Spiritually Transformative Experiencers, a primer for health professionals. And this is Jan Holden and Rebecca Vala. Spiritually transformative experiences. Of course, there's an acronym for everything. This is STEs. Present life challenges and disruption for a person and their sense of normalcy. Careers, religious beliefs, families, and relationships are deeply affected. Alienation, depression, and even suicide have been reported. If these experiences are dismissed as dreams, or worse, if they're considered symptoms of psychopathology, the experiencer feels invalidated and isolated, creating or adding to hopelessness about finding needed assistance in processing and integrating what they have experienced as real. The American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences conducts and fosters research to continually increase understanding of the integration process and to develop even more effective tools in supporting experiencers. They provide resources to experiencers and their families, and also train, certify, and regularly update professional therapists, spiritual guidance counselors, mentors, and spiritual group facilitators who specialize in supporting specific or general needs of experiencers. That's what that talk will be about. Our next speaker is very powerful. She spoke at last year's conference. Suzanne Giesemann will be talking about adventures in consciousness. To what end? As eternal souls temporarily in physical form, many of us have experiences of connection with higher aspects of ourselves at some point in our human lives. These experiences can be transformative on a personal level, with ramifications that extend beyond our immediate circle of friends and family members. Join Suzanne Giesemann, who is, amazingly, a former Navy commander and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and is now an evidence-based medium, for a look into why and how we can honor these extraordinary gifts of the Spirit for the benefit of the greater good. What's astounding about Suzanne is she is so level-headed, she is so sensible, she is so non-New Age that you have to be persuaded that her evidence-based mediumship is the real thing. Alan Huguenot is next. Alan has been on this show as well, and he will be speaking on the nature of consciousness. Alan's always very interesting. He takes the broad view of science and consciousness and NDEs and puts it all together in a way that is fascinating. To me, at any rate. I always enjoy hearing Alan speak. He asks, what is consciousness? How has recent science defined this? And what is the latest scientific research on NDEs mediumship, remembered prior lives, out-of-body consciousness, and biocentrism? What are all these things telling us? And why is materialism no longer a valid way to see the world? How has it been disproven? It's an argument that goes back to Plato, and probably before that, about how to view what is really real and the nature of consciousness. Nancy Rhines. Awakening to life. After eye-opening spiritually transformative NDEs, many NDEers struggle during their return to human life. She writes, I was no different until I realized that my NDE itself gave me all of the tools I needed not only to reintegrate to human society, but to turn my life into one I have always wanted to live. In this presentation, Nancy discusses the wisdom she was given during her NDE, including power of choice, how gratitude and compassion can transform our lives in the world, the amazing gifts that we have here in the physical plane. And Nancy says, I then give examples of how I used this wisdom to transform my own life in ways that many of my family and friends have made changes for the better as well. I also present exercises that others can use to transform their human life one step at a time, whether or not they have had an NDE. Richard Martini. This should be a fun talk. In light of Richard's research into the flip side via deep hypnosis as detailed in his best-selling Amazon book and the film Flip Side, Richard began to focus on NDEs, OBEs, and other altered states of consciousness, interviewing scientists and near-death experiencers who were able to use hypnosis as a tool to examine their NDE in more detail. And he is doing a talk, live-streamed, near-life experiences, how examining NDE cases gives insight into having more fun while on the planet. Richard's talk about the flip side of the flip side, how there are some fun stories about interacting with the other side, and how realizing that we don't die, in spirit anyway, can help us navigate our lifetime. Maggie Callahan. Quick dying, slow dying, messages of hope. Maggie writes, people in a sudden state of clinical compromise marked by disruption of all signs of life often report a remarkable experience known as an NDE. These experiences are only shared after medical intervention or CPR brings the experiencer back to life. These are the messages of those who have died quickly and have returned to teach us what it is like. When people dying slowly of a terminal illness are approaching death, they too often have remarkable experiences as well as an expanded awareness. This is something that I encounter in the hospital on a regular basis. This is called NDA, or nearing death awareness. These are the messages from those who are dying slowly. They teach us while they are dying because they can't come back. Although the NDE and the NDA have many similar characteristics, there are profound differences. And understanding the differences and learning how to interact with the dying can help us identify and participate in the NDA while it is actually happening. We're almost out of time. I'm going to move on to Robert Pease. Shine your life, writing and presenting your story effectively from stage. Traumatic experiences are both profound and transformational, and at the same time often become the largest hurdles to overcoming doubt, frustration, post-traumatic emotional problems, and long-term challenges to communicate effectively your personal story as an intimate, healing experience and a miracle. That's what Robert is going to teach, learning the steps, the 5 steps in the process of creating and entertaining and compelling your presentation. And finally, last but not least, PMH Atwater, who has been on this program many times and has talked about many different things. This time she's talking about after effects, the real story. Nobody talks about the real story of near-death after effects. When the experience is over, it isn't over. When you feel angry to be back because you wanted to stay, or excited about telling everyone only love is real, the fact is your body has changed. Your mind, emotions, and sense of the numinous are suddenly different. And PMH Atwater will be fascinating on this topic, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Well, folks, I hope I've intrigued you enough to go to the IANDS.org website and sign up for all these great speakers in live streaming. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. I believe I've covered everyone, though. Perhaps a few are abbreviated, but you got the idea. If you'd like to listen again to this or any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org. And for more information about the work of IANDS and live streaming the conference in Orlando, or I should say from Orlando, check out our website, IANDS.org. And tune in next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio. This is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.